Hey, good morning to those of you on the West Coast. Good afternoon to those of you on the East Coast where I'm at. We are getting started here on my daily LinkedIn Live. Just get my table set up. I wanted to say thank you very much to those of you who've shown up early, shown up on time. It helps LinkedIn push the message out further to other people to remind them that we're getting started. So thanks a lot for doing that. Thanks a lot for engaging in the comments. I wanted to give you a tip. I don't know if you can see, this hand. Right there, that whole list, it's like 50 different little mindset things that are part of what I do and what we do as an organization. And at some point, I'm going to write a book and say, hey, here's 50 things to keep in mind. But I always like to pick out of those and try to share them. And so pretty soon, I'm going to start sharing them at the beginning of our training. Today, we're going to talk about why BD and capture, people in federal sales should be using LinkedIn as your CRM. We're going to get started in that in 1 second, but I just wanted to remind you of one thing as a tip, right? As you go forward, when I do sales and I'm looking into an organization, an agency, or a teammate, I look at people in one of three roles. And this is just a standard role description that actually came from Neil McDonnell when he talked about this in spin selling. And he had another book called Major Account Selling. And these are books I've read 25 years ago. I read them every year. But the three roles are focuses of receptivity, focuses of dissatisfaction, and focuses of power. And the reason I want you to understand this and why it relates to today's training is that when you look at people in LinkedIn or at a networking event, a conference, or whatever, they're generally going to fall into one of three categories as their primary role, right? Some of them might have a secondary role. So you might find somebody who's a focus of dissatisfaction, and then they're also receptive. But their primary thing is dissatisfaction. So those three roles, quick description, focuses of receptivity. These are people who are not going to buy anything from you. They don't have the power and they don't have the need, but they're willing to talk to you about their organization, about what's going on, introduce you to people. Focuses of receptivity. Focuses of dissatisfaction are the program office, when you think about federal government side, or actually business development and capture people at a prime contractor because they're trying to build a team, or in the government, they're trying to fill a need, solve a mission challenge or a mission goal that they have. And so they're the focuses of dissatisfaction. They've got the problem, they've got the money, but they're not the focuses of power. And then the last one is focus of power. This is the contracting officer. Another kind of lateral focus of power is the contracting specialist. The larger the opportunity, the more you've got several people in there. And these people are very powerful as it relates to you, right? Only one person's going to sign the piece of paper, but these people at that level are the ones who spend. They don't really care about the need. That's the program office's job. These people's job is to make sure that when the government buys, they're buying smartly. So anytime you're looking at somebody, today's LinkedIn discussion or at an event or wherever, try to identify what you think their primary role is, because that will help you with the questions you prepare, when you do a call plan sheet, et cetera. So let's go ahead and let me turn this little scrolling caption off so you can see my website there. Let me pull up my little thing. So let's get started. Today, we're going to be talking about customer relationship management tools, or CRM, and my recommendation that you make LinkedIn your primary CRM tool. We're in the we're in the era of social selling. I'm going to get that word right at one point. But we're in this era of social selling. That's where we're at. Everybody is online. Everybody's looking at their phones, moving forward, and bringing CRM, or the activities that happen online, offline, introduce friction between your buyer or your point of contact and yourself, right? We don't want to introduce friction between us. And so the more we can stay where they're at, where I'm at, where we found each other, the better for the relationship. And so we're going to dig in that today, why BD and capture folks like yourself should be thinking about LinkedIn being your primary CRM tool. If you don't know who I am, I'm Neil McDonnell. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce, and I want to welcome you to my daily LinkedIn Live sales training. Actually, I got to come over here and look at the chat just to make sure I'm never missing audio and visual. I don't, if you haven't been here before, I don't actually look at the chat too much because I'm worried about delivering, training for today. But occasionally I look out there for Gus or a couple other friends of ours in the community who will just let me know whether they can hear me or talk. But anyways, I want to welcome you to the daily live training. This is where I teach you process and procedures for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years as a small business owner in the federal market, And since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting, it's not a secret, it's just a process. And a process is that path from A to Z. When we follow the process, we achieve predictable results. And that's what I want for you. Before we go any further, do me a favor, help me remember who you are. Help buyers remember who you are. Put your company name and 2 or 3 words about your core competency into the chat that describe that core competency, and make it easy for people in the community, right here with you in the government contracting world, whether it's buyers or teammates. Make it easy for all of us to remember who you are. And remember, don't ever think that you can do this too much. Put your name, company name, and core competency in every single day, in every single place you're at. When you go to an event like mine, or you go to an event with some of my peers who are out there doing similar training, or you go to a government vendor outreach session, online, virtual, whatever it is, always sit in the front row. Always let people know who you are, right? You're not being pushy. You're introducing yourself to people like me who might have heard of you before, but I don't got it locked down yet, or new people. We get new people all the time. And so I want you to be able to do that so that people can be engaged. And also throughout this training, remember, this is your community. So engage with the other people in chat. I just got an email from Doug Keaton, who's in our community, and he was talking about how he made a connection through our community in the chat. They went offline, they had a meeting, and then an email follow-up talked about how great it was to establish that new connection, and they can see themselves working with each other down the line, whether it's on a particular opportunity or just helping each other in the GovCon space. But he was thanking us for enabling this community, and it's one of our favorite parts about this training. It, ironically, is not me, but it's you in the chat. And so definitely engage in the chat. That's your community. One last thing, let me know that you hear and understand me as we go through the training by putting things that I ask into the chat. If I ask you to put something in the chat, like your company name and core competency, do that. It really makes the training so much better. Okay, just to give you a heads up on what this training is going to be like today, front row seats. I love seeing that. I'm going to talk about the problems with using an internal CRM tool, why LinkedIn should be your CRM tool, and then I'm going to switch over and share my screen and go in and show you just some of the power. This is not a full out LinkedIn training. I can do that later. People have asked me to teach on LinkedIn and Sales Navigator in particular, so I can talk more about that later. But here I just want to show you pretty quickly how valuable it can be. So let me take a sip of water and then I'll hit with the problems. Okay, so one thing to keep in mind is I'm not bashing internal CRMs. If you're a company that has a really robust internal CRM and the problems I talk about from the CRM are not you, then I'm not talking to you today. But I am talking to the companies that are 40 million and below who think we must have an internal CRM tool to be doing something correctly. You don't. Project management, sales, whatever it is, as long as you're doing the right thing, it doesn't really matter what tool you use. And so I'm going to try to convince you that LinkedIn's the right tool to use right now. And if you ever get to the stage where you want to have an internal CRM tool, you just integrate them. So the first thing that I believe, and this is, I'm going to give you my beliefs of problems with internal CRM tools. First thing is all selling stops when you go into a CRM tool. If you've ever been in a position to watch salespeople, and maybe you're the person who's actually the salesperson I'm talking about, right? If you go into a CRM tool, a customer relationship management tool, you've stopped selling and now you're doing data entry. And if you're not, I've run into so many people who just are not fast typists. And the whole thing kind of slows down. I've used, and I am a techie, I'm a fast typer and I'm a techie, and I've used Microsoft Dynamics and watched just the delay between when I'm trying to go from accounts to leads to this thing. And it just begins to frustrate us. I always say, don't mess with a salesperson's mojo. We need to be happy and out there selling. You need to be happy and out there selling. So, when you're typing into a CRM tool, you're not selling, you're just doing data entry. The second problem that I see, and I'm going to give you 6. The second problem that I see is that the company keeps everything. And this is me talking directly to you as an individual salesperson. If I happen to be talking to a company owner, you might not totally like this particular tip, but the company keeps everything. So if all your relationship and all your activities are in with the company, then all that history, all the activity it did with these people in the accounts, when you leave, don't go with you. And I don't mean to suggest that you should leave. You should stay and do a great job and be there for life. But That's all a lot of history that leaves, and that's not good. And the worst thing about it, though, is sometimes you leave, they keep it, no one uses it. It's even worse. It's not like anybody gets the value. Number 3, it encourages and rewards what I consider the wrong behavior. It rewards administrative work over selling. So if you don't do the right thing in CRM, I get upset at you because you're not doing what I need in here. I don't see data entries in here, et cetera. Compared to, I should be measuring you on the progress towards sales. Success in the federal government is a 7-step process. I describe this all the time. Visibility, targeting, outreach, lead to relationships, opportunities, proposals, and sales, right? That 7-step process is the only way I should measure you, not on how much are you entering data. Yes, those things are needed, but that's not what I should measure over selling. And so we want to reward and encourage selling activities more than administrative activities. And you'll hear me talk about, if you have to pull it out of LinkedIn where it's at, you're starting to feel like you're double entering. The 4th one takes up valuable time. By the way, if you feel like any of these hit for you, or if I don't hit one that you see as an internal CRM problem, go ahead and put in the chat, especially if one of them pops up, you're like, oh, that's the one I don't like. Let me know. I'm curious on whether this is ringing true with you. So number 4, it takes up valuable time. I described this already, that it's a data exercise. So I believe that entering data instead of actually doing business development and capture tasks is taking up valuable time. And because number 3, right, you're rewarding me for that, now I feel like I'm doing sales activities because I'm in the CRM or something. But the reality is I must be meeting with program offices to understand their challenges and their goals. I must be meeting with a contracting officer to be able to shape an opportunity. I just saw an email thread. It was somebody in this community, and sorry, I saw it on LinkedIn, but they were talking about how for a year they chased an opportunity that then when it got to the end, it went to a different contract vehicle that they really could have access to, and boom, it was out of their running. Also, somebody else talked about they were looking at an RFI, but they didn't respond and they waited and then it went somewhere else. My point is, when we're distracted by data tools and CRMs, we're not knocking on doors. And so, yes, you should put data into the system so we can track it, but we should be rewarding people for the relationships they have with contracting officers and program offices in the agencies we're targeting. Number 5, I believe that internal CRM tools tend to exist without process and procedures. We stand up this big fancy CRM tool, we tell everybody we need to use it, and then we're all kind of figuring it out. Compared to if I was going to stand up an internal CRM tool, I would stand it up and say, look, it has one task. That's the only thing we need to do in it until we get really good. And then we document that process, we repeat that process, and then we add a new functionality. So it could be something like, let's get the names of any contacts in there one at a time, not data dumps. And data dumps go into my 6th and final problem with internal CRMs, is that it integrates with GovWin and Bloomberg Gov or whatever. It integrates with all these tools. Your internal CRM tools integrate. And I hate that because it takes it, it's bad enough we use GovWin as if it's an actual capture tool. It is not. It's just a data repository. It's great, right? It's no different than than Wikipedia or Google. I can go there and I can get information, but that is not sales. That's not business development or capture. And it's worse now because if I can go and grab data and dump it in from GovWin into my CRM, well, great. I just picked up their unreliable data, right? It's really good when it's good, but unreliable data and dumped it into my CRM and I got to put it in, compared to strategically putting stuff from GovWin or these points of contacts, strategically putting people in instead of taking 100 names and dumping them in. That's what marketing thinks. And to me, that's more when you're doing product sales and inside sales. But when you're doing business development and capture and you're on a 12 to 24 month sales cycle and you're developing relationships, you want to make sure that the tools you use are designed to put the focus on relationship building, selling, compared to administrative activities. So that's my 6 reasons on why I think internal CRMs are not great for us. And if you're following with what I'm saying on these problems and how I'm describing it, and it's less about how bad they are and what they're stopping us from doing more of, which is selling, then do me a favor, reduce friction into the chat. I want to see that we're reducing friction between the person we're trying to sell to or work with and ourselves, and any activity that gets in the way begins to put friction in. And so I want to reduce friction. Go ahead and put that in the chat. While you're doing that, I'm going to talk about 7 reasons on why CRMs your LinkedIn should be your CRM, and then go show it to you. Okay. And I'm going to go through these pretty fast because I want to leave a good amount of time to show you what I lined up in LinkedIn. First thing is LinkedIn does have basic CRM functionality and features, right? I can track activity, I can track people, relationships, accounts. So it has basic CRM functionality. Number two, LinkedIn as a CRM tool, it auto tracks activities that our contacts have. So if a person I'm following, I want to build a relationship with, I can see the activity that they're going through, job change, promotions, posting on LinkedIn, whatever. I can see when they're in the news. And so it's got this ability to auto track what's going on with my contacts so that it shares it back with me, and I can build the relationship better by being pushed information. I didn't have to go look for it. LinkedIn pushed it to me. This goes along too with, number three on why I think LinkedIn's a great tool for your CRM is that it alerts you to opportunities to engage with contacts. And I'm going to show you that in a minute. That tracks directly with the activity that they do, right? So recent activity. Number four, and this one is about you owning the relationship and the relationship history. I talked about it as a problem, but the relationship is yours always. When you're building reaching out and you're viewing somebody and following them and then connecting with them on LinkedIn, and you're building that relationship from an early relationship where you don't really know each other to where you know, like, and trust each other. Well, that relationship, I want you to own, not your company to own. Of course, your company wants to have that stuff, but they're never going to own it. People don't buy from companies, they buy from people, right? And so we want you to own that relationship. And if you want to own your relationship too, do me a favor, if that makes sense, put that in the chat. Own the relationship. Number five, using LinkedIn as your CRM tool, it encourages engagement and outreach. It encourages selling activities over administrative activities because of everything you see in there. Every time you go into this CRM tool, LinkedIn, you're encouraged to take activity with your contacts. Every time you go into an internal tool, you're more encouraged to just document what you've done or document what you think you could do. But nowhere in there can you really do it. Not pushing away all those automated things. I don't really like automation for building relationships. Number six, LinkedIn is awesome, right? There's tens of thousands of your buyers in LinkedIn already. We can easily look in and say, I think there's 850 million or something people in there. There's, let's say, 100 million people related to government contracting, but just, is it enough that there's tens of thousands of your buyers, people who would fit into your world, both teaming partners and agencies? They're in there, and I'm going to go show you just a couple of them. Number seven, last one, is it aligns directly by using LinkedIn and using it as your CRM tool, and the way you can use it, it aligns directly to the 7-step process that I described earlier for federal revenue success, right? The 7-step process. Visibility. Are you visible? Do you look good and findable? Targeting, finding the right agency, right company, and then finding the people in there. Outreach, relationship building, opportunity, developing opportunities, capture, right? Proposal writing, and then sales. Those 7 steps align directly to LinkedIn. You can go in there and say, hey, today I want to work on outreach. It's like, okay, that's just putting together a list of people's names that you can reach out to. This is social selling at its core. This ability to be out there where people are socially active. You could go to an event in person and network, and this is no different. This is why, if you read the details of today's event, I said LinkedIn is the best face-to-face tool out there, or something like that, right? And what I meant was you can really build quick relationships faster than if you went to a networking event where you're standing around with 100 other people and you're in a room, you're a little nervous. But in LinkedIn, you can quickly identify commonalities and who might know. Like in a room, you might not know all 100 people, but in LinkedIn, it instantly tells you, hey, Jane's there. Jane knows John. They can make an introduction. You can walk over to Jane. Jane, would you take me over to John and introduce me? LinkedIn enables that. And that's why I like thinking of it as a face-to-face type thing. But put social selling in the chat if you are tracking on that. Okay, so I want to switch over and share my screen for the remainder of this. Russ, I got 18,000 of my closest friends are on LinkedIn. Okay, so let me share my screen and get over here. I should be sharing my screen. This is LinkedIn Navigator. By the way, yes, you could do a lot on free LinkedIn. Yes, you can do a lot on premium. But when you talk about a CRM, you're coming up to Sales Navigator. It is inexpensive. No matter what anybody says, it's inexpensive. Let's call it $1,000, $1,200 a year. if you're trying to make $1 million out of the federal government, and one relationship could lead you to that per year, well, you're kind of covering that with the return on investment, right? So don't ever look at things as the price. Look at them as the opportunity that they can bring to you, the return on investment. So I just wanted to show you 3 quick pages. The first one here, this is the homepage of Sales Navigator when I show up. And so just looking to make sure I'm seeing it. Good. So when I show up, a couple of things I see right away that I just want to point out. First is all these alerts. And so I can see that one of my connections, Jay, has shared a post. I can go in and look at it. I'm not going to look at this one because I'm going to look at others. Kendrick, who's in our community, he shared something recently, and then Emmanuel. So I can keep scrolling down. On the right-hand side, though, are the priority accounts. And so if I want to come in here and quickly look at PEO Digital or PEomlb, right? These ones, these 3 at the top are related to SharePoint. I'm working with the customers doing SharePoint, so I want to track on that. But I can look here and say NavWar's got 9 decision makers. Rather than me being stuck at wondering what to do, I can click in there. I can begin to follow my process for engaging with these people. And it begins with just viewing who they are, what's their role, what are they sharing, and then moving on to maybe engaging with them with likes and comments, maybe following their profile if it makes sense. So you can quickly see in here that I'm getting a lot of good information right off the bat. I want to show you what those pages look like individually. So I'm going to show you one company and one agency. And this company is in our group. So congratulations, Hunter, you get showcased. So Bain Group and Hunter are in our community here, and they do SharePoint. I used to do SharePoint, so it's one of the reasons I always go back to them. But I just wanted to point out some things that you see when you show up. And imagine if I'm trying to maintain a relationship constantly with Bain Group. It takes me 2 seconds to come in and go, have they done something recently? If I look every single day on the right-hand side, I can see that they haven't posted anything in 2 days. That's cool. That means I don't need to look down there because there's nothing there. But if I come in and see they posted something, I'm going to go look at it. And I will show you how I do that in a second. Over on the left-hand side, you can see things like it shows employees, and Bain Group actually has 2 different profiles on LinkedIn. It's a separate thing. So half their employees are in one place, half are in the other. But I can see they have 3 decision makers and the employees they have. As I scroll down, I have this CRM functionality again, right, with an account map at the top. And in here, you can see I've got them kind of organized. The way that LinkedIn describes it is they say, hey, put the C level, the leaders at the top level. Tier 2 is like it's called management, and somebody else at tier 3. That doesn't work for me in government contracting because I don't really care about the C level, right? Like let's say a 3-star general, who cares? No offense, 3-star generals, but they're not the buyers, right? The buyers are down around. And so I organize my account maps in 2 ways. I either organize it, if you were here early on when I said there's 3 roles, focus is a receptivity, focus is a dissatisfaction, and focus is a power. I would put tier 1 to be people who are focus is a receptivity. Tier 2 focuses of dissatisfaction, the program office, people like that. And then tier 3 are focuses of power. And the reality is I don't care about the focuses of power until I get some traction. Another way that I do it is just hot, warm, and cold. And so in this case, it's hot, warm, and cold. Hunter is a business development specialist, but for their company in the federal space, she's the top person, right? I mean, under these 2 guys, Huey and Greg, who run the company, but so these 3 are at the top, and then I might put other people down below. And I'll scroll down, just show you one other thing down here. I talked about activity. I can come down here and see account alerts, and this is how I'm tracking on Bain Group. And I'm going to show you in a minute how I do this at a federal agency. But here I can see that they've got an update. I might look at it and say, I just clicked on view, and it comes over here, and I can see that she's sharing that they just posted a capability statement on knowledge management. So if anybody's looking for a company that's good with knowledge management tools, reach out. But by the way, I can see Stacy's in there too, which is awesome. Giving it a thumbs up. That's a community giving the community a thumbs up. But I can read the post. I can engage with this. I can engage with Hunter and tag Greg or something. But even if I don't, Greg right here will see that I've tagged it, right? So Hunter will know I'm engaged with the content. This goes all into what I was talking about yesterday, I think, which is know, like, and trust takes 7 hours. This engagement is part of that 7 hours. Let me come up here. to this one, and this is PEO Digital. And so I'm going to try to wrap up with PEO Digital. Same framework, right? Whether it's a commercial company or agency, in here, I can see PEO Digital in the Navy has 39 employees, right? And there's 8 decision makers. So I want to track on who these people are. This is a quick way for me to get to know them. There's also a lot of people who actually aren't even connected here that this tool allows me to say, hey, they're working together. And if I have time, I'll try to show you. But over on the right, I can see that they just posted some stuff recently. It looks like they're posted every few days. And so I'm going to go down in a minute and look at all account alerts, but I just want to come down and show you how I look again at the account map. So in here, I'm going to put it as hot, warm, and cold as I organize this. I actually have just reaching into this now because I have a paying customer. I want to help them understand this organization. But this one guy is the one I was trying to just track. Black Pearl is huge within the Navy. There's Air Force has got similar type stuff. And so I can come in here and track Jonathan and see what's going on with him. If as I build a relationship, I would see activity that I have, right? If you saw me go back, actually, let me come back here let's see if Greg comes up, right? If you see Greg and I have been connected a long time, right? Years. And so this is what I meant by you keep your history out there. So this person I would try to reach out to. I can track notes on what I learn about them. If there's an offline podcast or a document I read, I can put that in here. So that way, anytime I'm doing anything with Jonathan here, I'm able to reference some of my past notes, especially though, as it relates to digital, he's kind of new, right? He's only been there a year and a half or so. That's a good contact for me to build. And so I would have him here in that tier 1. I think LinkedIn actually just recently put it into tier 1 because I've looked at his profile too many times. They're like, come on, you like this guy. You want to work with them. So you get this idea of the map, right? And then it shows you recommended leads. If you want to come down, there's all sorts of other people. Here's Jennifer. So she's the deputy director out there. I would absolutely be reaching out to follow her. She's an influencer, if you will, at PEO Digital. I want to know what she's saying. And then I want to begin to get on her radar. So I'm going to come down here to the same thing. One of the beauties when you go into the federal government is this totally makes sense. When I was at Bain Group, the companies that tells me that I might want to see, they're just unrelated. They're all unrelated. But in here, PEomlb is the sister agency or program office to PEO Digital. So that's important. The CIO of the Navy. And then here's Black Pearl, that guy up above, Jonathan. I'm realizing, oh, there's a whole separate company in LinkedIn for them. So I should track that too. Last thing I'll show you is just coming down here. I look at some of this stuff, right? PEO Digital. I'm not interested in engaging with Hispanic Heritage Month. That's more of a culture post for internal to that organization, right? We do like, hey, here's a celebration we're doing. That's more internal. But as I come down, there's one down here that I look at. It's their very own Ruth Young's, right? So I'm going to click on this, and this is the head of PEO Digital, and she's out talking. And so I'm going to look at this. I'm going to track this. One other thing I'll point to you, and I think I'm going to have to wrap up because of time, but if you look right here, there's 65, 67 people out there who have gave it a thumbs up, but no one commented on it. And so in this person here, their comment is not helpful, right? It's valid, but it's not helpful in any way. But I would create a comment that says, hey, I'm looking forward to hearing from @Ruth Youngs Lou, right? I would tag her. I watched or I read something else she did. I would try to make a relevant comment. I would take an hour to think about what I was going to comment on so that it is super relevant to anybody who's looking at this post. I don't want to do something fluffy. And it also targets directly to PEO Digital and Ruth that, hey, I'm tracking and I'm very serious about trying to get in the door, have a conversation, introduce my company, whatever. And so I hope that made sense when I said I would spend an hour out there doing that. I'm going to give them a thumbs up just for the fun of it. Okay, so very quick fire hose of information for going into Navigator. But what I hoped I showed you is enough in today's training that you can see that there's so much more you can be doing with LinkedIn to help you build relationships, get those people to know, like, and trust you. And there's so much functionality within LinkedIn that can serve as your CRM, your customer relationship management tool. And I'm hoping that you see it and decide to go that path. remember that the amount invested will come back to you tenfold when you build relationships in your target agency or with your target teaming partners. So again, today's training, we talked about using LinkedIn to manage your relationships. Do me a favor. One way you can manage the relationship with me is go hit the bell notification on my profile to make sure you don't miss out on any federal agency content I share. I share strategic documents from Ruth, for example, that we just talked about on LinkedIn. And if you go to my profile, right below the banner on the right is a bell, click it. And when you click it, you will be notified of my posts automatically. And I will be appreciative that you're following that closely. If you found today's training valuable, do me a favor, put thanks in the chat. It's not just me. You got Gus running the inside in the chat in the community. So give us both a thanks in there. We really appreciate it. Remember, government contracting, it is not a secret. It's just a process. Part of the process is to have a great weekend. Hope you do.